I've had people walk out of me before, but not always being so charming.
Video streaming at housefarms.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
You pus-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Well, it's great to have on Boston Brian, and we got chewing on Ukraine as well, and it's great to have Philip Ittner joining us live from Kiev to discuss about, I mean, there's a lot of movement going on there. There's a lot of intrigue still going on in Russia. Gherkin, the whatever the, I don't know, propagandist is saying another rebellion is right around the corner, I think was his quote. The Antonivka.
Gherkin is the head. Gherkin is the head of the Donbas militia.
Right. Okay. So he's one of the DPR supporters. Yeah.
He's
then
the DPR, and he's highly critical of the Kremlin, and he's like Prigozhin. He's been getting away with it for a while. So
maybe he's next. Is he up in the Pez dispenser of attacks? I don't know who he'd lead, though.
I don't think he has the support. I don't think he has the manpower like Prigozhin did. So I don't think we're. And plus the fact he has even less now, because part of his complaint is that Russia was throwing militia members from the Donbas into the meat grinder. So all those protestations that Moscow really cares deeply about what's happening to the people of the Donbas,
right,
is a bunch of baloney. Because they're chucking, they're chucking the militia members in the most difficult fighting. So
right,
yeah, no, Gherkin's not a happy boy.
Which is I'm fine with. I'm sure you are as well. By the way,
I'm not losing any sleep.
Yeah, right. That every day that guy wakes up miserable, along with Vladimir Putin, is a good day on Earth for most people, most human beings, including their own. I would like to say, for the record, a couple of things. One is we've heard a lot about the Leopard tanks, and we've heard about Bradleys and all that kind of stuff. But apparently now the big thing is that the Ukrainians have finally gotten mine clearing tanks sent to them that actually hit the front line recently, like this week. And that may in and of itself be the thing that is speeding things up, that created that forward momentum. These tanks are amazing looking, but they basically like plow ahead and set the mines off so they explode out into the ground. They kind of turn the ground up almost like a plow.
Like a snowplow. I mean, in essence, that is what it is. I mean, it's a snowplow on steroids. It's instead of a your V-shaped snowplow, this thing is sharp diagonals, and it's armored itself, and it's but in essence, it's the same thing. But you're absolutely right, Hal. That could be that. It's been this weird thing with NATO and Ukraine. It's see a need, fill a need, see a need. Of course, the Ukrainians say that they see the need about 3 or 4 steps ahead of NATO is the problem.
Sure. Well, that's going to be an ongoing thing no matter what you do, because they're in front. They're in the front lines. That's how it's going to work out. Sure. So my obviously there's a lot going on. Prigozhin apparently lost his catering contract. I don't know if you know that. That finally happened. The Ministry of Defense canceled his catering contract. That'll show him. Nothing will stop future mutinies. Like people fear that they'll lose their hot dog business at the Kremlin.
That's right.
I gotta say, I don't know how are they justifying it that this guy was on his way to Moscow saying there won't be a president, this is gonna happen. They take over a military base in Rostov-on-Don, and then 12 hours later they get a camp and stuff, and they got to turn over their weapons. Which, would you really do that? I mean, with Vladimir Putin,
they have to turn over their heavy weapons. They have to turn over the weapons that gives them parity with the Ministry of Defense. So
sure.
The S-300s, the anti-aircraft systems, those missiles, those get turned in.
I see.
Things like personnel carriers or like armored jeeps and
right.
4x4 kind of thing
with M50s mounted on them.
They may be able to keep that,
which is all you need for a rebellion, really.
Kind of I mean, well, here's the thing, Hal. And I've been ruminating on this an awful lot. You stay quiet, Johnny. I thought you were going to take advantage of me saying I'm ruminating on something. Anyhow,
There you go.
we
I
go.
did that for Johnny.
There's the childishness
Yeah.
we all know and love. Okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that if Putin wanted Prigozhin dead or in jail, Prigozhin would be dead or in jail. That's first and foremost. So
Right.
the fact that he is in Belarus, basically under house arrest, means that he's got some purpose for him. There is some role that Putin wants to keep Prigozhin alive for and around for, but not inside Russia, so that he can't be a disruptor like he was 2 weeks ago now, 10 days ago. But he's on a short leash, and he is under, in essence, house arrest by Lukashenko in Belarus until such time, and this is where I kind of am starting to get forward thinking, until such time that the power power struggles that are about to happen in Moscow and in St. Petersburg, but primarily Moscow, until Putin has a better idea of who has got the upper hand in that fighting that's going to happen, that internecine fighting that's going to happen. Like, we're hearing reports that the FSB, the inheritor of the KGB, basically, they just changed the acronym. And the military intelligence, Russian military intelligence, apparently are feuding, and they're starting to square off against one another. It's
How do you not
discussed. Well, yeah, absolutely. How do you not?
Yeah.
Because the writing is on the wall that there is going to be a post-Putin era. Nobody loses Crimea and Ukraine and stays in power in Russia. This is land that Catherine the Great, a contemporary of George Washington, Catherine conquered these lands. It is the cornerstone of their concept of self as empire. It's on Putin's watch that they're going to lose that. Nobody survives that. So I don't know what role Putin is going to be in a year or two from now, but it's not going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
There will be, as there is throughout Russian history, there will be a power struggle within the power elite, the ones who have benefited or who have survived Putin's reign. Maybe, and I say that because maybe they didn't like it, but they just went along with it.
Right.
Now they may rise and there may be fighting because, and obviously also for listeners and viewers, a bit of context. I lived through Moscow in the 90s. I saw this happen. I saw this exact thing happen where there's a transition between leadership. So Yeltsin into Putin. I saw that whole period before Putin even came on the scene, because it was obvious that Yeltsin was on his way out. There was no way that a drunk, senile old man was going to be in power in Russia. So we all knew it.
Right.
But there was a period of years where they went through looking to try and find who would be after Yeltsin. So I got to see it in quick succession. Now, I don't think we're going to see the 90s again, because nobody wants that. That was way too chaotic. But there will be fighting between the various power structures who will be positioning themselves for a post-Putin era. And Putin, unlike Yeltsin directly, although Yeltsin's family was involved in negotiations for his successor, Putin will be involved in this. So he's going to want to get the power, whoever's going to be the power behind putting somebody forward after Putin, Putin's going to want to be reassured that that group or person or whatever it is going to be sympathetic to him. And that's why I think he's keeping Prigozhin around, because Prigozhin needs to be his rabid little attack dog that, again, he keeps on a short leash in Minsk, just on the other side of the border, and he can threaten the other power structures with Prigozhin. Now, we'll see how that plays out, but I think that's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
That might be why Prigozhin is still drawing breath.
Right. I happen to think it's like, that is a mad plan, but I don't know what his other options are. You know what I mean? That is crazy.
Again, you don't lose Ukraine or Crimea and survive. That's that's a huge blow to Russia and Russians and Russian sense of self and identity. It's
So they
he's on the way out. He knows it.
Yes.
And he knows it.
We're gonna have questions from our chat room for no doubt that Johnny Million is looking into right after we come back from the break. But I want to I'll put this thought in your head for when we come back, that the satellite communication system that the Russian military uses was knocked offline by a cyber attack this week and was down for a day and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Think about momentary disruptions in military battle communications in the history of war. And most of them, even in World War II, you weren't talking about things that lasted more than a couple of hours. There was a constant, re-engagement in this. But to have your entire communication system down for somewhere in the order of 30 hours during the push, during an effective cyber attack by the Ukrainians largely, or whoever, and then you just sit with it. Just kind of stays down. It was Dozer Teleport. The satellite system just went down for 30 days. That's amazing to me. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with more with chat rooms questions for Philip Ittner and the House Sparks Radio program Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million.
I'm Philip Ittner.
I know I'm only on one day a week. I get it. I would have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then with progressive and all. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then with progressive and all. Yeah, it's going to be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's going to be good. All right, we have a bunch of questions from the chat room, no doubt. And then I have a little Easter egg. And I have a bunch of happy ending stuff this week. More just as a heads up that there's a bunch of of all weeks. You'd be surprised. Lots of happy ending stuff coming up. So, but what do we have, Johnny Million?
I will first, Boston Brian is praising us up and down in the chat, and sending love to Phil. And he also sent a super chat. I said, thank you so much. Love being on with you. Here's to everybody in the chat, too. You rock. Here's a little something for the computer fund.
Oh, thanks.
Give some love to Chud.
Oh, yes. Chud definitely is going to get some love. Cam's been all over making her feel good, and she's mobile, and she's breathing way better. So that's a good thing. So. Yeah.
Good.
So, anyways, thank you so much.
Brian's got to follow up on that. Brian's got to follow up on that correspondence we've been having. But it's
yes.
One of these days, he and I are going to have a full-on chat.
Yes, agreed.
Collab on something. Anyhow, sorry. Go ahead.
So, Kellahella wants to know about the mining of the nuclear power plant.
Zaporizhzhia.
Yeah. Scary. Lots of intelligence. Suggests that reactor 4 in particular at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been mined. There's a lot of talk about whether or not the Russians would in the end do this, because it's potentially a risk to them.
Right.
They would be irradiating land that is on their doorstep. So, it's in some ways it would be potentially a shoot yourself in the foot kind of act for the Russians. But then again, also the Russians are, they just blew up the dam and flooded and created a massive ecological disaster by flooding all of southern Ukraine into the Black Sea. So will they do it? I don't think they will. They've been training. Look, the folks, the authorities in Zaporizhzhia are taking this seriously enough that they had mock-up, emergency procedures where you're washing everybody down to try and get the radioactive elements off of their physical body. You're doing, you're providing iodine. You're doing all sorts of stuff. So the authorities are taking it seriously enough that they're doing that kind of thing. And we should be concerned. But maybe it's the eternal optimist in me. I don't know. It's
It is a
crazy.
very cut.
That
It's a
would
very
be
cut off your nose to
crazy
spite
thing
your
for
face kind of thing for them to do, and that's the one thing you have going for it. Because again, we're not dealing with ideologues. We're not talking about like Islamists or Nazis in that regard who view in some sort of like, you know, we will live and we will be the surviving saviors of the planet, and everybody else can just go ahead and die. These are people who are hedonists and criminals, and you need people. Criminals need marks. They need people to steal from. They need other people to do the work so they can take it. And that's different than the ideologues we might be dealing with in this situation that might just go ahead and do that.
However, they are also to you know, the other side of the coin. We'll keep flipping it as we assess all this. But the other side of things is they are also the abusive spouse,
right?
Who, if I can't hand you, nobody can.
Right.
You know, that sort of thing. As he, you know, as the spouse is being forced out the door, and the abused, you know, spouse is headed towards the new boyfriend NATO. The Russia, the old abuser, might just on the way out the door kick over a potted plant or something. It's a glib, flippant way of referring to a nuclear catastrophe, obviously, but you get the point I'm trying to make.
By the way, just in case anybody's keeping track, another Russian banker has fallen to their death. A woman named Kristina Baikova.
About that.
Just now? Oh, her. Oh, yeah. No. I thought you meant like as we were speaking. There are reports of another one. You know, her. She was quite a looker. Yeah, she was deputy head of
Loco Bank.
Is it Alpha Bank?
Loco Bank.
Okay.
L-O-K-O, because Kremlin. But yeah, apparently she was going to have drinks with somebody, and then he just came over and she'd magically fallen out the window. That's, I don't know. And, you know, excrement occurs. Yeah, it's funny how that happens a whole lot.
We're going to see more of this. We're going to see a lot more. This is early day. I mean, as awful as it is to be seeing this, because it's awful to see people getting assassinated.
Yes.
It's going to get worse, though. It's going to get more intense because, again, there is going to be this fighting as there's this
jockey for power and who wants to run away with the most stuff.
Because Ukraine's going to win this war. Ukraine is going to win this war.
Right.
And ultimately, one way or the other, Ukraine is going to win this war. What happens with Crimea, we'll have to see. But they've lost Ukraine. Russia has lost Ukraine. On Putin's watch, they have lost Ukraine. And that changes so much of the dynamics within Moscow. So we can expect to see more of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and by the way, you know how Trump has been saying he could solve everything in 24 hours? He's going to solve that whole crap. Okay, he's officially, he's been talking about, I could just do it in 24 hours. He finally answered some of the question. He was interviewed on Reuters. And he said, I think they will have the right to keep most of what they won back. And I think Russia will always also agree to this. You need the right mediator, negotiator, and we don't have one right now. I think the most important the U.S. needs to do is make peace, unite Russia and Ukraine and make peace. You can do that. Now is the time to bring the two sides together to bring about peace, which is just, I don't know what the heck he's talking about. Right, because Russia's about to lose, and that's what he's worried about. You can say that Putin, is still in there. He's still strong, but he's definitely, I would say, somewhat weakened, at least in the minds of many people. However, if Putin were no longer in power, you don't know what the alternative is, and it could have been better, but it could have been much worse. Like, both sides are either just like a true leader. But he said, don't bring up war crimes because that's a hindrance to peace. And he said, give away part of the territories to stop the war. That was his peace. Yeah.
The man's an idiot.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
The man is an idiot who has no idea what he's talking about. There's
none whatsoever. Yeah.
There's no way the Ukraine is just like, oh, let's forget.
Hal was quoting Trump, Eileen.
Yeah, that was Trump saying that. Yeah.
That was Trump saying that. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no way Ukraine forgives and forgets. Not after I just put out, by the way, my latest vlog, I'm very proud of it, is about Mariupol. And part of Mariupol is the theater where 600 men, women, and children sought shelter and were bombed by the Russians and killed. innocent civilians killed, massacred as they were hiding beneath the theater. So go check out that vlog. But then that's not even to mention like Bucha. That's not even to mention Irpin. That's not even to mention. No way that the Russians just get to walk away from this with some extra acreage that they that they killed people for. Nope, unacceptable.
Yeah. And that's
the man
now
doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, and that's going to be the standard from now on. I mean, it basically, like, you know what they did in Georgia and Chechnya? Let them keep doing that to whatever country they want to do it in. That would be the idea. That's the argument. That is it. Let them take whatever they can take, and at some point we'll all get tired of war and they can just keep it. That's what he's arguing for, because he benefits from it. It's super weird. Let's grab another question from the chat room before we run out of time in this segment. What do you got, Johnny May?
That makes me angry.
Sure. This is from Berkeley. Is the expectation over there that Crimea will be back under Ukrainian control by the time the war is over?
Yes, that is the expectation. That is the desire. They recognize how problematic it is. The Ukrainians do. But the thinking, there's a couple of things that the Ukrainians are thinking about when it comes to Crimea. And I know we're going to break, so I'm going to make it real quick here. First and foremost, Russia will never stop coming for Crimea if Ukraine does not seize it back. If Russia is still on the peninsula, they will always fight for the land bridge, because you cannot support Crimea from the Kerch Strait. That bridge is falling into the sea eventually. It's built on silt, and it's also a right target for Ukrainian missiles. So you're not going to be able to support Crimea without a land bridge. So they'll keep coming back, and the Ukrainians know it. So it's like either we take it or we keep fighting this every 10, 15 years, and the Russians keep trying to grab it back. Secondly, there are Ukrainians who are occupied on the Crimean Peninsula, not least of which the Crimean Tatars, a Muslim community who Russia has abused throughout history. So there's that. There's just the sheer, we want to liberate our land. So they're going to go for Crimea. I think they have the means to do it. I think they can take it. But first and foremost, maybe what you do is you drive to the sea, cut the land bridge, and then it's an inevitability that Crimea falls. And then also by slicing the land bridge in half and isolating Crimea, there will be a massive panic attack in Russia, and it will accelerate Putin's demise.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I agree. I think Crimea being the quickest way to end this war is to seize Crimea. Because the idea that they would be able to take it back a second time without some sort of extraordinary awful, which I don't think they're willing to do with Putin being as weak as he is, would be the thing that would go, okay, lost cause. We don't need the rest of this land if we're not going to get that. If we don't have Crimea, the rest of the Donbas doesn't have a lot of functional use to us, because it is that land bridge you're talking about. That's why they want it. They just want the puff territory around it to give themselves some security room to continue to hold Crimea. And again, they have Sochi, they have access to the Black Sea. Like, they just want more of it in that regard. It's so weird.
Well, and Sevastopol is a deep sea port.
Yeah,
Sochi is not. So that's a quarter of their naval power is based in the Black Sea.
Right.
So it's no small. It's no little thing. It's not a joke. I mean, this will tear up Russia's sense of identity. But so what? Tough.
Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's like saying I abducted this woman off the street and she doesn't want to put out. That's the argument from them. That's honestly that she doesn't seem into it.
Yeah.
That's the madness of this. Just every time somebody defends this behavior, I'm like, this is a pro Ted Bundy argument. That's what this is. That you can't argue with strength, and the guy sure was charming, right? That's what we're hearing. That's Trump's idea. That's the tankies' idea. It's madness, and I don't want to wrap my head around it because it's gross. I mean, I I know what they're saying. I can comprehend the concept, but I'm disgusted by it. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. More of your questions for Philip Ittner at infotainmentwars.com or on my Hal Sparks channel on YouTube and twitch.tv/Hal Sparks and on Twitter. We'll be back. Hi, Facebook, YouTube.
Attention, attention, stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. I have a lot of, question statements, story stuff to address as well. But we want to get to the questions that are in the chat room. There may be some overlap. I have a feeling that some people are going to be asking similar questions that I might have. So hopefully,
I've definitely tried to consolidate.
Yeah, go for it, Johnny.
All right, so we've got. This is interesting. Ask Phil, when Trump referred to Elaine Chao as Coco, was he using a Chinese-ish put down or the Russian one for Ukraine?
Either way, the man's an idiot.
Yeah. I would argue he was.
Why does he have to do that?
He says China-loving wife about her, so I'm going to go with the former over the latter. I don't think he knows.
It's China.
Yeah, I don't know that he knows about this. Now, that said, the aluminum plant that was put in there with Russian help in Kentucky being what it is, that, the back and forth about Mitch McConnell being cocaine Mitch versus, tin can Mitch and all that kind of stuff is debatable as far as, but Trump just kind of repeats whatever he heard the second before he steps on stage as far as these kind of details. He's not a deep reader about it. We know this across the board.
I don't read, obviously.
I'm going to go with him being a Chinese lawyer, like his peekaboo James for Letitia James. He is using a sideline racist term and rephrasing it so he doesn't get, he can wink and nod at these kind of things without getting called out directly. Let's grab another one.
Too.
Yeah.
All right, so this one's from Patrice Gallagher, who's new in the chat. Very welcome.
Nice.
Last Saturday was wild. Gentlemen, when do you think Putin will be removed, transferred, or otherwise not in his current position?
This is a very good question, and welcome, Patrice. That's a great right out of the gate. That's you got to the heart of the matter. Time frames are difficult, and I try to stay away from them. But what I do say is it's an inevitability. Mm-hmm. We are on a course that only heads one way, and for this course to be corrected and changed would take massive unexpected events to have happened, like somehow Russia rebounds and actually wins the war and occupies Ukraine. That's crazy talk, but that sort of thing would change the metric, obviously. Right. But that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm reluctant to do a time frame, but it will happen sooner than you think, because it will be accelerated. When it is obvious that they are going to lose Ukraine, they're going to lose the Ukraine war, and frankly, they're going to lose Crimea. Things are going to accelerate dramatically internally within Russia, because it's going to be a blow to their fundamental core sense of self.
Right.
So it will accelerate rapidly. I do think that Putin is going to be out. Now, I'm gonna slightly amend that, because I have been thinking about a possible situation where Putin actually stays in, but he's really just a puppet.
Yeah,
he's allowed to stay in, and somebody else is pulling the strings. But I can't. I think that is a slim chance.
It's a bigger reach.
I mean, like below 5% chance of that happening, because he would still be the figurehead. He would still be the czar.
Yeah,
that would give him way too much power and it's just I can't see it functioning. I could see it as a stopgap measure. Nobody wants to go back to the 90s. Nobody wants to go to the chaos of the post-Soviet period. So there has to be there will have to be somebody who keeps the center of gravity going, and all the other powers kind of orbit around the center of gravity.
Right.
Whether or not that is Putin, or whether or not somebody else is found to slide into that position, I don't know yet. But they could maybe keep Putin around, put him down in exile in Sochi like Napoleon at Elba. He's nothing more than a figurehead until they kind of work out who is actually going to take over. That's a possibility, but it's I think it's rare, as I say.
Did you
hear what else was in the question there? Because
I think it was like what
talking mostly about the time frame.
Yeah,
but
it's mostly like it.
If you're asking me who, if you're going to ask me who's going to be that great cardinal, we are so far off from that right now.
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of fighting, and as I said, I think the last time we spoke, you and I, Hal, that not only are we waiting for the dust to settle, but the dust isn't even in the air yet.
No.
So there's going to be a lot of blood and violence, and fighting, and groups that'll rise in power, groups that'll be thrown out. A lot of that's going to happen before we start getting to who's going to be the next czar.
Right. And for the record, apparently it's coming out that during the Wagner uprising, during the mutiny, Putin was on the yacht of his personal banker somewhere off of St. Petersburg. And so the planes flying from Moscow to there might very well have been sent there to pick him up after they've been, they dropped him off. He was going to this like graduation party for the guy's, I don't know, 37-year-old rich idiot son or something, that he was on this boat, and they sent the planes up there in case he needed to bug out even further, is the current story from their sources of where he was during that period, which I find fascinating. There's also another story coming out that apparently the Russians are cremating their dead on the front line. We saw those mobile crematoriums that they had. They're doing it so they don't have to pay compensation because everybody's MIA. So the list of people who are missing in action is just going to be left there. You don't get a dime until they're found, and they're never going to be found because they're dust. It's just, but that's who you want to be running Ukraine, guys. That's who Trump thinks should run, a big chunk of Ukrainian territory. Super. Johnny Million, let's, we got time for one more at least before the break.
Awesome. All right. So this is from Apocryphy. Alexander Vindman theorizes NATO could accept Ukraine via a modified agreement, including Ukraine as it is, protecting current, not weighing in on other areas right now. Thoughts?
Yeah, I saw Vindman say that on Times, I believe, or maybe it was the Bulwark, or it doesn't matter. I respect Alexander Vindman greatly. Mm-hmm. He is a national hero, in my opinion. And when it comes to this conflict, the man speaks Ukrainian, he speaks Russian. He is, the child of a Ukrainian immigrant. I give him a lot of credit and a lot of leeway. And when it comes to Ukrainian membership in NATO, this is not a red line for me. This is not Ukraine's military is one of the finest militaries in the world at this point. They're battle tested, they're battle hardened, they're well equipped. It's not so much, does Ukraine need to join NATO as much as does NATO, NATO would be glad to have Ukraine in many ways. It would be an asset. It would be a benefit. Now, there is one other factor to it, and that is a security guarantee for Ukraine, and I think that's a smart thing to do. We cannot, after this current war is ended, we cannot allow Russia to fall back, regroup, rearm, and then just have another go at it in 5 years. That's unacceptable because it'll never end. So, Article 5 is a very powerful thing. That's the thing that says an attack on one member state of NATO is an attack on all. If Ukraine is in there, Russia's going to think twice about going at it again. So, I think Colonel Vindman is a very smart man. I will defer to his knowledge and expertise about whether or not that can happen, because there are certain things that Ukraine has to be before it can be a member state in NATO. There's certain requirements that they don't necessarily match. Firstly, they have an open conflict on their territory. Secondly, they have a massive corruption problem. There are lots of reasons why you might want to pump the gas a little bit and create some sort of special status for Ukraine. Give them Article 5 protections, but don't integrate them into NATO until they meet other expectations. That might be possible. But ultimately, I have no problem with NATO, Ukraine being part of NATO. We'd be lucky to have them. But does it happen immediately? Is there a rush to do it? I don't know. I don't know, and I'll defer to people like Vindman and others, military men, to answer that question more definitively.
There's also, talk of, and we got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll have the happy ending and a couple more questions. Clearly, that Ukraine received security assurance from the United States when it gave up its nukes. And so in 94 at the Budapest Agreement, and they also did a negotiation in Russia between Ukraine and Russia about returning those arms to Russia for them to maintain, but Ukraine wouldn't have them at that point. Without joining NATO straight away, because they were a brand new country and there was a big long process, and the need for it wasn't even significant until Russia started wandering into Chechnya and Georgia, is the idea. They didn't even need to consider becoming a member of NATO. We thought maybe the end of NATO would come about naturally, but we gave security assurances to Ukraine that we will back you up if you give up your nukes. They gave up their nukes and Russia attacked. We have to live up to that agreement. We're talking about, stuff that goes all the way back to 92, 94, even before the NATO founding agreement that Russia signed that gave Ukraine sovereignty and the ability to join NATO if they so choose at their own discretion, like every other country in the world. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with more Philip Ittner and your questions at infotainmentwars.com and, of course, on twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. Don't forget to check out twitch.tv/It's Johnny Million. We'll be back.
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning, I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning, I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! So lots of questions, lots of stuff. Real quick, let me blaze through some happy ending stuff so we can get back to the questions immediately for it, because there were a bunch of things that I feel like will annoy the heck out of our Trump supporting Ukraine should lose friends. One is, and I try to do things that are 100% a plus, but a couple of things are Schadenfreude pluses. One of them is that Fox News has agreed to a $12 million settlement with former Tucker Carlson producer Abby Grossberg, who was treated very grossly by everybody there, especially Tucker Carlson. So he has officially now cost them $799.5 million. So that's
remember I worked at Fox.
Yes, you
did. I know
did.
what that environment was like. I know what that environment is like, and she was absolutely right.
Yep.
Sexism, misogyny, racism
right in.
Was rampant. Rampant. It was from the head down.
Yeah.
So good on
so that's what it said. A feature, not a bug. That's the way they look at it. So the other one is big stock market rally this week that is annoying everyone because it was supposed to just be tech stocks recovering, and then it spread. This is the Bloomberg title. Stock market rally that shocked everyone is broadening beyond tech. Average share has the best week versus the S&P 500 since January. That's the average share. That's a huge deal. That means they're all getting investment dollars from all over the world. But tell me again about the BRICS economy. Now, The other one is, and this one's this one's purely. Oh, don't get me started. That I got it. I have a Russia one in a moment that's just so good. But this one's actually great. There's a genetic breakthrough that could prevent MS progression. Researchers have discovered the first genetic marker associated with a faster progression of multiple sclerosis, paving the way for new treatments to be developed for the lifelong condition. They narrowed it to the specific genetic marker, and if they shut that off, or they have treatments that could shut that off or mitigate it, that will stop the progression of MS, to slow it to a crawl, if not stopping it entirely. So fingers crossed that keeps going there.
Huzzah.
That in and of itself, like I said, I like the ones that are.
Lose Marty McFly. We can't lose Marty McFly.
No, yeah. Well, his Parkinson's, and Parkinson's is they've made equal ones, but MS, yeah. But that's the thing that got Terry Garr and others. That's what they've been dealing with, and so yes, I just for her. Okay. Also, this is so funny, and I don't know how to even shape this, but apparently Russia has asked African countries for help in building their next space station. And that because the Russians are no longer going to be welcome at the ISS, and they're not going to be participating in their own thing. They don't have the means and they can't launch stuff from Kazakhstan apparently anymore. That they are going to pair with some African countries, and I think really this is just a way to sneak cobalt out of the country or steal their minerals and metal under false pretenses. Sounds like that's more what it is. But apparently Russia's going to build its own. We don't need you guys. We've got our own space station. They're going to build their own space station and a series of satellites because things are going so well already. And apparently, remember when China was supposed to have their back? Wasn't China supposed to help them with this? Nope. Apparently China doesn't. China is more than happy to share the space station with us. And they have no interest in joining in this with Russia. So Russia has gone to a couple of different African countries and said, we're going to help. We're going to work with you guys to build this thing. It is going to be built in 2024. The main work will be completed in 2030, and it will be launched in 2032. Ha 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 ha. Never happen. I'm just saying that.
I follow all the social media things of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The press secretary for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov. I follow all of their social media accounts.
Right.
And I have noticed in the last few months how they are just dropping stuff like, congratulations to Gambon on their national day of.
It's all whatever. African countries all celebrating something. Yeah. And meanwhile, by the way, taking over what the Wagner Group has done down there, and just going down there to kill people. So don't even get me started. So okay, let's finish out our questions while we still have some few minutes left. There's Johnny Million. What we got?
Sweet. All right. This is from CRL 3232. How much of the military equipment does Ukraine keep after the war is over?
That we gave them?
Oh, the Russians. Sure. All of it. All the Russian stuff.
All of it, because they're paying for it. Our stuff. The Russian stuff, they keep all that. That's theirs. That's they got that on the field of battle. I just saw I just saw another tank being carted off by a tractor. They keep all of those. Now the equipment that we gave them, it's theirs. We didn't give it to them. We gave it to them by Lend-Lease. They're going to pay for it. They're going to be paying for it for years and years and years.
You know what? That actually kind of leads into this other question that you might want to go on to it. Who pays to rebuild all the cities completely destroyed in the Ukraine?
Russia. Short answer, Russia. No, I'm being slightly glib, but I also want to finish up with the last thing as well. There might be a couple of pieces of equipment that get returned to
Patriot systems.
Member states. It's Patriots, they might send them back, but more the vast bulk of it they keep and pay for. Who pays for Reconstruction? I'm not being too glib when I say Russia, because we are going to empty the coffers of every oligarch connected to Putin, and that's going to be billions and billions of dollars. They've already started it. Not only, and it's important to note that they actually have already had a test case I think it was in Florida. I want to say it was in Florida, but don't hold me to that. It was somewhere where they did a test case of emptying a oligarch's bank accounts because of, he's on the list. He's on the, so they have had a test case, which means more and more will be happening. So a lot of that money is going to be taken directly out of people who benefit from Putin's regime, people who benefit from this war. They're going to lose a lot of their money, if not everything. And then in addition to that, I'm sure the International Monetary Fund, the IMF will come up. The European Bank of Reconstruction, they will get involved as well. There's a lot of, and there will be private, there will be private industry that comes here.
Right. Well, they also for the record,
if you want to invest when the war is over, invest in Reconstruction because it's going to be lucrative.
It's going to be a growth industry. But also the legality of the seizure of the oligarchs' money in and of itself is not is still up in the air. They're still working out the details of how much you can seize and what qualifies in it. But what they can do is freeze it. And during the time that they're freezing it, it gains interest because it's literally just like any other funds in a bank. It's viewed as an asset, so it's loaned out, ironically enough. And the interest gained on it is being given to Ukraine. So every dime that these wealthy Russian oligarchs are making on their money right now is being sent to Ukraine. And that's that's a positive.
See if there's a case that's actually gotten past just being frozen. I'd have to look it up.
There are a few of them because they are criminal activities.
I want to say about 2 months ago. It might be criminal activities, but I remember about maybe 3 months ago, there was a court case where it was like, yes, we can transfer this. These funds can be transferred to. Now, maybe it wasn't completed. Maybe they've got other things that they have to go through. But I'm almost positive that roughly about 2 or 3 months ago, there was this court case where it was like, this is how we in future are going to go forward with not only seizing assets but delivering them to Ukraine. So I don't know if it's 100% at that point, and I don't have the document or the news reports right in front of me. But I'm look, they're one way or the other, they're going to, because they should. It's the right thing to do.
Right.
So,
no question. Let's grab it. I think we have time for maybe one more quick one before we go.
Yeah.
But I also
does Philip have any thoughts on the Atlantic article, RE, the adoption of Ukrainian kids by Russians? Did you see that?
It's disgusting. It's a crime. It's all. I haven't seen the Atlantic thing, but I know the story very well. I speak to people who are working on that very issue here. It is one of the worst crimes against humanity. I mean, it is ethnic cleansing. It is child trafficking. It's abduction. It is everything that is disgusting.
I should have said that adoption was put in quotes.
Yes.
Yeah, quote unquote, not adoption, not adoption, theft, kidnapping, ethnic cleansing. To heck with them. No, every child needs to be returned. I know people who are working on this very case. On this very topic, and they're not going to stop until all those children are brought home. That is one of the most cynical, disgusting things that has been.
That is going to be a 10-year story after this nonsense is over. That we are going to be hearing about the ramifications of these abducted children what we already know, much less the very small ones and where they end up, and all that. Like, this straight up abduction is just grotesque. And again, this is what the Trumps and the tankies are arguing for. Yep,
it's disgusting.
That we run out of time, so appreciate it, Philip Ittner. Thanks so much. I'll see you on Wednesday at our show. Again, our sort of post 4th of July show. We'll talk about that. Enjoy your 4th of July holiday. Everybody be safe. Don't blow your thumbs off. Stay clear, and take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. That's right.
Check my vlog out. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Cheers.